All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're talking about a weapon that completely rewrote the rules of warfare. And no, it wasn't a bomb, it wasn't a missile, it was just a piece of code, a string of ones and zeros that proved the digital world could reach out and physically smash the most heavily guarded secrets of a nation. This is the incredible story of Stuxnet.
So, let me ask you this. How do you sabotage a top secret facility that's totally cut off from the rest of the world? It sounds like the plot of a spy movie, right? But this was the exact puzzle that had to be solved to halt Iran's nuclear program. And the answer they came up with? Well, it was a weapon unlike anything the world had ever seen.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Our story starts deep underground at the Natanz nuclear facility in Iran. You have to understand, this place was a fortress. It was completely air-gapped, which is just a fancy way of saying it had absolutely zero connection to the internet. It was built to be untouchable, both physically and digitally.
But inside this impenetrable fortress, something was going seriously wrong. These incredibly sophisticated, super expensive centrifuges, the machines they needed to enrich uranium, were failing. And not just one or two, they were failing at a crazy rate, literally shaking themselves to pieces.
And you can imagine, the engineers there were just completely losing their minds. They couldn't find any signs of sabotage, no broken parts, no explosions, nothing. It was like a ghost was haunting their most important equipment, making it commit suicide. The enemy, whatever it was totally and completely invisible.
So the mystery of these failing machines would eventually get solved, but not by the engineers in Iran. No, it was solved by cybersecurity experts thousands of miles away. And what they discovered? Well, it would change everything we thought we knew about conflict. That's how one expert described it, the moment science fiction became reality. Because that invisible ghost haunting the factory, it wasn't a ghost at all. It was an unbelievably complex, malicious computer worm that we now know by the name Stuxnet. Now, it is so important to understand this. Stuxnet was not your average virus. It wasn't designed to steal your credit card number or crash your computer. No, this was a digital warhead, a piece of code whose only purpose was to cross over from the digital world into our physical world and cause real, tangible destruction. So, how powerful was this thing? Get this, Stuxnet used 4 separate zero-day vulnerabilities. A zero-day, is a secret flaw in software, a backdoor that even the company that made the software doesn't know about. Finding and using just one of these is incredibly rare and costs a fortune. So to use 4 of them at once? That was just unheard of. It was a digital shock and awe campaign. It was a message, loud and clear, that this wasn't the work of some hacker in a basement. This was a weapon built with the massive resources of a nation-state. So let's actually get into the anatomy of this attack, because the way Stuxnet worked was just a masterclass in being sneaky and precise.
First, it had to get inside that air-gapped facility. It did that by infecting USB drives, just patiently waiting for some unsuspecting worker to plug one in. But once it was inside, Stuxnet was incredibly polite. It didn't just attack anything. It was looking for a very specific digital fingerprint. Computers with a certain kind of Siemens software that were hooked up to a very particular model of industrial controller. If it didn't find its one single target in the whole world, it did absolutely nothing. It would just lie dormant to avoid getting caught.
But when Stuxnet did find its target, the attack began. And it wasn't a quick explosion. It was subtle, designed to look like a simple equipment malfunction. It would secretly tell the centrifuges to spin way too fast, putting them under incredible stress. And then it would return everything to normal. Then it would slow them way down. It would repeat this heart attack cycle over and over for months, slowly and methodically destroying the machines from the inside out, making it all look like natural wear and tear.
Okay, but here's the most brilliant and honestly the most terrifying part of the whole thing. How do you destroy thousands of machines right under the noses of the people running them? Well, you trick them into thinking everything is perfectly okay. Stuxnet did this using something called a rootkit. The easiest way to think about a rootkit is like an invisibility cloak for malware. Its only job is to hide the attack, to make the bad code and everything it's doing completely invisible to the system operators.
And this illustrates the deception perfectly. On the left, you have the reality. Centrifuges are spinning out of control and tearing themselves apart. But on the right, you have what the operators saw on their screens, a pre-recorded loop of data that showed everything was running perfectly. While the machines were literally being destroyed, the monitors were showing a nice, steady, healthy green line. The engineers were flying completely blind.
By the time anyone had a clue what was really going on, it was way too late. Thousands of centrifuges had been destroyed. The mission, from the attacker's point of view, was a massive success. It set back Iran's nuclear program by years, all without a single bomb ever being dropped.
But here's the thing. The story doesn't end there. Because eventually, Stuxnet got out of that underground facility. And when it did, it basically handed the world a blueprint for a brand new kind of warfare. See, before Stuxnet, cyber attacks were mostly about information technology, or IT, stealing data, hacking emails, crashing websites. Stuxnet was the first major attack on what we call operational technology, or OT. That's the tech that runs our physical world, our power grids, our water treatment plants, our factories. The goal wasn't data theft anymore. It was physical destruction. And just like that, all of our critical infrastructure became a potential battlefield.
And the way this weapon escaped was almost laughably simple. An engineer took an infected laptop home from the Natanz facility, and then he connected it to the internet. That's it. Now, the weapon itself was too specific to harm other systems, but it was now in the wild. It could be captured, taken apart, and studied, not just by security researchers, but by other countries, by terrorist groups, who now had the perfect template for building their own digital weapons.
Stuxnet was proof that a few lines of code could project national power and wage an invisible war. It really did open Pandora's box. And the question that leaves all of us with is, now that this box is wide open, what on earth is going to come out next?